Like an atomic monster rising from the deep, today on the show we will be destroying Godzilla Minus One through conversation. No, not attacking the movie, but really taking a look at the monstrous mayhem, but one that held a profound narrative that echoes the depths of humans' emotions and societal reflections. Join us as we dissect the artistic nuances, the breathtaking visual storytelling, and the performances that have left critics and audiences awestruck. All of that and more here today on Podio Commentary. Hi everyone, welcome back to Podio Commentary. My name is Matt Jarbo, and I will be your host through this live discussion about Godzilla Minus One, a movie that has been on my mind since I saw it. A movie that I have desperately wanted to talk about over the course of the past couple days, because it is one that is profound. It is profoundly interesting. It is profoundly amazing, and it's definitely something that is going to stand the test of time for quite a many people. It's going to absolutely 100% get a lot of us very excited for what might be coming next down the pipeline. And obviously, this is going to be one where we have a lot of spoilers. And if you happen to be listening to the live show and you want to call in with your thoughts and your opinions, I encourage you, I implore you, I hope you will take advantage of our voicemail line, accessible 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. But for right now, 323-400-4956, 323-400-4956. If you're listening to this on podcast after the fact, you guys can call in with your voicemails, your thoughts, your concerns about any of the upcoming movies I'm going to be talking about. Be sure to follow me on Twitter at Podio Commentary or on YouTube at Podio Commentary in order to be able to get the updates for what is going to be going down in the future. Because there's always a lot of movies to talk about. I'm still working on trying to finish the Matrix franchise. I've just been so busy recently with work and Thanksgiving and my kid's birthday that I just ended up not getting around to it. But I did go see Godzilla Minus One and Silent Night the other night. And I do want to talk about Silent Night, but this one had to be talked about now. You know, it absolutely positively had to be talked about right now because it's just that good of a film. And so why don't we just dive in? We're just going to dive into it here. Right? Oh no, you know what? I got to do a little bit of housekeeping first. Just a little wee bit of housekeeping. If you guys enjoy Podio Commentary and you want to see more of it, the best way to do that is to hit subscribe, hit like if you're new, and check back often for more episodes. We will be doing it live. This is a live movie discussion show. You are encouraged to call in. You can just call in during the middle of the day when you know what we're going to be talking about. Leave your comments and maybe get your voice heard on the podcast. There will be special patron perks coming here very soon for those of you who want to sponsor episodes directly. And that can include people who just want to pay me to talk about a movie that they want. Or, you know, if you want to come on and talk about it with me yourself, we can make that happen. It is definitely going to be an interactive show. I think it's something wholly unique that not a lot of people really take advantage of in this space, right? A lot of times it's like just two people talking about a movie without ever really diving into what the audience thinks. Here, it's just me. It's just me, but I want to know what you guys think. Again, 323-400-4956. And as always, you guys can suggest movies to me that I could get to at some point in time. There's thousands of movies to watch, hundreds of thousands of movies to watch. I'll probably be doing this show till the day I die. And that is something that I am very much excited to do. So let's quickly dive into Godzilla Minus One's plot synopsis. By the way, spoilers, just so you know. Godzilla Minus One is set in 1945, near the end of World War II, where kamikaze pilot Koichi Shikishima lands on Odo Island and encounters Godzilla for the first time. Then, 2 years later, Shikishima, who survives the event, now a minesweeper in Tokyo, is haunted by survivor's guilt and supports a woman named Noriko Oshii and her daughter Akiko. Godzilla, mutated by U.S. nuclear tests, heads for Japan, and Shikishima's crew attempts to stop it. Despite significant damage, Godzilla regenerates and attacks Ginza, causing massive destruction and casualties, including Noriko. The Japanese government refuses further action against Godzilla, but Shikishima and a crew of private citizens devise a plan to sink Godzilla in the ocean. Shikishima, intending to sacrifice himself, flies a plane into the mouth. And of course, that's a surprise for the end of the movie. I don't want to go into it too much. That's generally the plot outline of the film right there. Like I said, spoilers. By the way, I'm going to butcher some names during this. I apologize. Me being Western gringo Matt, I have trouble pronouncing certain words. So that's going to happen a little bit. That's going to definitely happen a little bit there. We are going to get to you're going to get to the butchering. But what I want to talk about here, as I always like to do with the show, before I dive into my thoughts on the film, I like to talk about how the movie was made. I'd like to discuss how it all came to be, because this is a movie that is inherently special to me. It's inherently special to a lot of people. I think because, like, after watching, Godzilla 2014, Godzilla King of the Monsters, Kong Skull Island, Godzilla versus Kong, and of course the upcoming Godzilla X Kong, The New Empire, which, yeah, I'm going to watch it when it comes out, but the trailer left me like underwhelmed because I saw that trailer after I saw this movie. And I think that was the weirdest thing, is I saw that trailer after I saw this movie. And this movie had such a massive impact on me as I was watching it, like brought me to tears, that I was like, yeah, it just doesn't feel the same to me, and no shade at Adam Wingard and the people over at Legendary. They're doing their own thing. But when you have something that's as in-depth and as engrossing and as amazing, especially with like literally 1/10 of the budget, it almost seems like laughable to release anything else Godzilla related right now, even if it is a Godzilla team up with King Kong to beat the crap out of a new Kong, elements like that. It's going to be its thing. But again, as we get towards that movie, I'll probably be doing another breakdown of the MonsterVerse, going through all the films, talking about all the films, and then getting myself hyped for the new one. I don't want to mock it. I don't want to dump on it. I'm just saying it didn't I was underwhelmed. But it doesn't mean I'm not going to go see it. Anyway, but this movie I'm going to watch again and again and again and again and again. It is absolutely fantastic, and I love it. So let's talk about the development. So the development of Godzilla Minus One actually began after the release of the 2016 Toho reboot Shin Godzilla. Shinji Higuchi, the co-director of Shin Godzilla, stated at G-Fest, which is an American fan convention, that Toho would be unable to produce another Godzilla film until after 2020 due to its contract with Legendary Pictures. This contract restricted Toho from releasing Godzilla films in the same year as Legendary's Godzilla films. In 2018, Toho executive Keiji Ota revealed that there would be no sequel to Shin Godzilla and expressed interest in creating a shared universe Godzilla series similar to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I mean, this was in 2018, and that is largely what the MonsterVerse is. The MonsterVerse, now having a television show on Apple TV Plus, is the Marvel MCU version of monsters. Like, Godzilla doesn't necessarily need that, I don't think. It could if you bring in like Ghidorah, and you bring in like Rodan and Mothra and Mechagodzilla and all the other characters that fill out that universe, which I think now fans are like looking at this movie and going like, can you give us something that's as like crushingly devastating at times and inspiring in others about these other characters? Like, wouldn't that be amazing? With any luck, we might, but I don't quite know. So anyway, here we've got Takashi Yamazaki, who in 2019 was best known for his film, The Great War of Archimedes, which is I think it's an adaptation of the Battleship Yamato manga. And he was appointed to make a Godzilla film. He spent over a year developing the script, but with the COVID-19 pandemic, it forced a postponement on filming the movie, which did ultimately lead to multiple rewrites over the span of a couple of years. Really makes me curious to see what the earlier drafts would have been, if they would have been as compelling, if they would have been as interesting. It's something that I can't quite tell, but I just, it doesn't matter. What we have is what we have, and what we have is great. So then what we know is that on November 3rd, 2022, there was going to be the announcement of Godzilla Minus One, the new Godzilla film. This happened during Godzilla Day. And Toho announced that Yamazaki's project was going to be that. And that he, of course, was the writer, director, and the visual effects supervisor of the film. Think of it like this. You have one guy in America, and all over the country and all over the world. You have filmmakers that are like, I am an auteur. I can write, I can direct, I can act, I can compose. Like, you got like your John Carpenter types, right? The writing, the directing, the score, whatever. Okay. But here you've got a guy who's like, I'm doing the writing, I'm doing the directing, and I'm doing the visual effects. It's almost like a Tim Miller type situation, or the guys behind Skyline or things along those lines, where these guys can come on in and keep the budgets low because they know how to make it work. They're VFX minded people first, but they're still able to tell pretty decent stories. Maybe not so much the Skyline guys, but that's a whole other beast. But in this case, yeah, Yamazaki really nailed it. He really knew what he wanted to do, and he really wanted to keep it grounded. He really wanted to keep it engaging, and he really wanted to keep it interesting. Because his vision for this film was to depict post-war Japan's loss and despair, aiming to create a setting where Godzilla represented that fear and despair. The film was intended to be an experience rather than just a movie to be watched. The writing was inspired by worldwide anxiety and government unreliability during the pandemic, with influences from Shusuke Kaneko's Godzilla, Mothra, and King Ghidorah, Giant Monsters All-Out Attack, the original 1954 Godzilla film, Steven Spielberg's Jaws, as well as Miyazaki's films, and others who acted as his influence. By the way, just as here's the thing with this. Not only did he write, direct, and do the visual effects for this movie, he also wrote and published the novelization of the film. So he took his script and turned it into a novel. And I actually really, really, really want to read that novel. But one of the things we have to remember here when it comes to talking about Godzilla Minus One is what the minus one means. So what it is after World War II, Japan was set to zero. Japan was completely obliterated, right? Completely obliterated in many, many, many ways. And they were needing our help to rebuild. And of course, that's something that we offered to do. And they were still at zero. Now, the reason why it's minus one is because here comes Godzilla, and Godzilla causing the destruction of Ginza and other places now kind of reset them, or actually made them minus one. They were no longer at zero. They were now less than zero. And that's something that's like, you have to look into it to really kind of get what it is, because it's not something that's really talked about in a lot of different ways. But what I find to be really fascinating about like how it approached that is by talking about the pandemic as being a key factor as to how he wrote this movie, and the unreliability of government and the unreliability of war, of the aftermath of war, the global anxiety. I mean, all of these elements are in the movie, but what really got me was like the fact that I'm watching this thing and I'm like, this is like Godzilla meets Jaws in many ways. But it's really, really, really good. It's not like a ripoff. It's inspired by, it's influenced by, it's definitely there. But it's not one that I would argue is like, what you would feel is just a straight ripoff. He really made it his own thing while showcasing that this guy has like a lot of inspirations. One of the things about Yamazaki is Yamazaki really, really, really loves Star Wars and Close Encounters of a Third Kind. Those were the two movies that he saw that back in 1977 that really, really, really influenced him to become a filmmaker. And this guy isn't young. He's like 59 years old. He's been around for quite some time. He's done a lot of work in the Japanese filmmaking industry, but he really wanted to be, to make movies like them. He really wanted to do a Spielbergian film. And my fucking God, guys, he did it. He nailed it. He nailed it on the head. He nailed it on the head. I didn't even really think about that until right now. But like, yeah, if you think about it, Ginza is kind of like, like the town in Jaws, right? It's not that they don't believe something is there, but it just kind of, it just kind of like, it's just a town that's dealing with this thing in the only way that they know how. And even like, well, as we get to the plot of the film, we'll talk more about that, but still it's really good. It's really good. You can absolutely see the inspirations that he takes here. And I think that's pretty fantastic. So they shot this movie back in June 11th between March and June of 2022. And given that the film setting is between 1945 and 1947, they actually like had a lot of their extras very much in the period clothing, which when you watch the movie, It's the period clothing. You know, it looks really good. It looks really authentic. The set design, the production design are really good. And they put a lot of effort into all that stuff because, like, again, this is a $15 million budgeted movie. All right. Like I said before, this is like 10% of what Godzilla versus Kong cost. And Godzilla versus Kong is a massively inferior film if you like human drama and human stories. Some people, one guy in the chat right now, by the way, absolutely hates the human story in these movies. So this is one that would absolutely be lost on him, obviously. Now, a notable aspect on the production was that they did a 1-to-1 scale replica of the Kyushu J-7W Shinden aircraft. Only a single original example of this aircraft exists and is located outside of Japan. The replica was displayed after filming at the Tachiari Peace Memorial Museum in Fukuoka, and Toho donated the replica anonymously, revealing their involvement only after the release of Minus One, which is kind of an interesting way to like get some marketing, right, for this movie. Although in Japan, it's done quite well. The movie did release. It had its red carpet premiere October 18th, 2023 at Toho Cinema inside the Shinjuku Toho building in Tokyo. The film was acclaimed a masterpiece right off the bat. Right at its premiere, people calling it a masterpiece. It served as a closing film at the 36th Tokyo International Film Festival on November 1st, where it was shown with English subtitles. The film released a nationwide release in Japan on November 3rd, 2023 to celebrate the 70th anniversary of the franchise, where it was only screened in 500 theaters around Japan. I don't know how many theaters are in Japan, but I feel like that's low. But Japan has never, ever really been that big of a market, you know. But then they decided to release it domestically. They released it here in the States, and Toho International put out this film, and they got it in 1,100 theaters throughout North America on December 1st with English subtitles. And the thing with this movie is, after its first weekend, 1,000 theaters grossed $11 million. Now, I was hopeful that the movie would pull in $15 million, right? Therefore, making back its production budget domestically. But I do feel like this movie is going to have some legs, and I do feel that this movie is going to get people involved. And word of mouth is so good on this movie. I don't think people are going to be able to like walk away from it. I think you're going to have enough intrigue and enough interest in the movie based upon everyone telling you how good it is, that people are going to dive in on it, right? And even some of the critics, they've, largely it's been given universal acclaim, praising the acting, praising the direction, the screenplay, the visual effects. Really, the Hollywood Reporter even highlighted the movie's visual effects for being such a low budget. And the visual effects work on two different levels, right? You've got I would argue your micro and your macro. Your micro is when you're up close to Godzilla in the water. And that's when it's the freakiest. That's when it becomes like Jaws. He is the great white shark of that region. But when he's traveling inland and he's going to Ginza, he walks very stiffly. Like, it looks like a guy in a suit, and maybe that's done on purpose. Maybe that's done just because it is what it is, but you also don't really care because it's still cool seeing Godzilla just tearing shit up. That's always fun. It's always fantastic. But again, every time we got to the monster stuff, I just kind of wanted to get back to the human stuff, especially the love story. I don't know why. I'm always drawn to a good love story, even if it's a one-sided sort of thing. But all right, let's talk about the movie itself, okay? We're going to dive into the movie. Like I said, here's where we get to spoilers. All right, here's where we get to spoilers. A lot of spoilers. So the movie opens with Koichi in a kamikaze jet, and he is trying to land on an island, Odo Island, that has a division of mechanics. This is a kamikaze repair center. It's here that he ends up running into Tachibana, who is a engineer and a service worker and mechanic who knows him from flight school. And it's also here where we kind of realize that he might not be telling exactly the truth, because all the guys here, all the mechanics can't find anything wrong with his plane. His plane is fine. Like nothing's wrong with it, And then of course he's like, "What are you implying? What's going on?" Because he's running from what the Japanese government wants him to do. But this is also the final days of the war. You know what I mean? Like it's all but lost for Japan. So at this point, he's like, why should I sacrifice it? And there's another mechanic there that tries to talk to him and tries to comfort him and maybe get him to open up. But again, he's very cagey about it. He doesn't want to say what's going on. He doesn't want to say why he's there, or that he doesn't want to give them maybe an excuse to like turn him in. You know what I mean? And that's what I was thinking when I was watching. I'm like, this is a point in the movie where it's like, who do you trust? And there's a big condemnation of the Japanese government in this movie. There's a massive condemnation of them. I've seen some people say that there was condemnations of like the Japanese and the Americans. The Americans were barely talked about, but the Japanese government is criticized heavily towards the end of the film by talking about how like they don't have respect, that they don't value life. And they didn't. The Japanese government simply didn't value life. Like they make a comment about how even the kamikaze planes didn't have ejector seats. They didn't value life. And that's the key takeaway from this movie. I'm jumping a little bit ahead of myself here, but that's the key takeaway from this movie. It is about life. It is about love, loving your friends, loving your family, and working to be better. And that's a lot of what this movie is. That's why it's so damn inspiring. But anyway, from there at night, all of a sudden you have Koichi's at the rocks, he's watching the water, and these little fish, these little creatures pop up to the surface. Doesn't know what they are. And then here comes Godzilla, man. But it's a tinier Godzilla. It's a sea creature. It's like a myth. The Odo Islanders, the natives on the island, have talked about how the Godzilla comes up to feed and he brings fish from the deep with him. And that's how you know he's coming, is because he brings all the fish up. So almost like there's like a warning sign. Now, Tachibana wants Koichi to open fire with his 20 millimeter guns on his fighter jet, thinking that this is going to kill everything, right? And here's the thing with Koichi. Koichi kind of gets it. He kind of gets it that maybe, just maybe, this is not going to do what Tachibana wants him to do, right? And obviously everyone's afraid and no one knows what to do. But as soon as one of those mechanics opens fire and gets Godzilla's attention, all bets are off. These dudes are toast. They're all dead. The next morning, Koichi wakes up and Tachibana is the only person alive, but he blames him for all of his men dying. So much so that when they're traveling back to Tokyo, he gives him all of the remaining pictures of the fallen crew as his way of basically just blaming him for what happened. But it's not, and obviously Koichi's got survivor's guilt, because he's just like, it's a bad situation after bad situation. But for him, it only gets worse. He goes home. The Tokyo air raids had like wiped out his neighborhood, right? They just absolutely wiped out the neighborhood. They killed his parents. His neighbor, Sumiko, is just like, she is drunk. She's angry. She's distraught. She knew that he was a kamikaze pilot. She blames him for the death of her kids. She blames him for not being honorable and not following through with what he had said he was going to do, which only makes him regress further into having survivor's guilt, because how does he explain that he doesn't want to die? Because no one valued human life at that particular point. They were they'd been fraught with all of this loss for years that they were like, this is how we're going to win. But then he goes to the market, and this is where things get interesting. And this is where his life and his luck kind of begin to change a little bit. He gets to the market and he's standing there and he hears thief, 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 and runs this woman, this vagrant looking woman. She runs right at him. She hands him a baby, like, watch the baby. I'm going to come right back. So he's like, what am I going to do with a baby? I just got this baby sitting here. Like, oh my God. And I thought that was kind of funny, because he's like, the hell? What do you want me to do with this thing? Right. So he's like, like, this is where you've got the character development, because he sits there for a long time and he waits, and he's like, just, what do I do? Well, you got to eat, you got to change the diaper, like, what's going on? But this woman hasn't come back, and he doesn't want to have this kid. He's in such the self-pity mode that he can't handle it. He can't do it. So then what he does is he sets the baby down and he walks a few feet away and he turns back and he's like, I can't do it, And this is how you know he's a good guy, right? He's not a dick. He's not a dick. He's a good guy. He's a good character. Goes back, picks up the baby, starts to take the baby home, right? She jumps basically out of like behind some buildings and she's like, what's taking you so long? And then you find out that her name is Noriko. And Noriko and the baby, whose name is Akiko, head over and stay with Koichi, much to his dismay. That's what he wants you to believe, at least. All right. Homie lost his parents. Homie lost everybody. Homie's now got this woman who he doesn't know with a baby that he finds out isn't hers and that she just ended up taking it from another woman who died in the air raids and promised to look after Akiko. So you've got this trio of people that are in this very desperate situation. Noriko wants to protect the child. She needs a place to stay. She kind of bullies Koichi into it a little bit, which I thought was funny. And then it jumps forward a little while longer. It jumps forward a little while. And now, he goes and he gets a job working as a minesweeper for the Japanese government. It's a job that pays really well. Yeah, it's kind of dangerous. But here's where he meets his homies. Here's where he meets his buddies. And I love these guys, man. I do. You've got Shiro, the kid, right? The bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, like, war is awesome. Like, he literally at one point says, war is awesome. And they all look at him like, you're a kid. Shut your mouth. You don't know what you're talking about, right? And then, of course, you've got Kenji Noda, who is the former weapon engineer. And this guy's like my favorite character in the whole movie. Noda is awesome because he's just kind of like, he's an odd, like Doc Brown type character. That's the vibe I got. You know what I mean? Like he's out there because he has to do it. But he was like, yeah, no, I worked on weapons during the war. Like that's what I did, And then you've got Yoji, who is the captain, who kind of becomes like a big brother to Koichi. And they all become like a really tight familial unit, right? Like it really makes it interesting, in my opinion, that it's like, the four of these guys on the ship, right? They're on the Shinsei Maru, and they are like just trying to go and cut these mines, and they become friends. But as the story progresses, it goes, from 1946 into 1947, and they've been doing this now for over a year. They obviously go and have dinner at Koichi's house. And there's a scene that I really, really, really like because, Koichi is still, he's just not there yet to give Noriko what she wants and to take from Noriko what she wants to give. You know what I mean? Like he doesn't, like at one point they mention that Akiko is his daughter and he goes like, he looks at her and he goes like, Akiko, I'm not your father. He just says it, man. Right. And then you got Yoji, and Yoji just like kind of like goes off on him a little bit. He's like, what is wrong with you, man? Like, what the hell? She's a kid. She's your kid. What are you doing? She calls him daddy and he just refuses it. And then they ask her about Noriko and he's just like, it's like he doesn't want it. He just, because he's got that survivor's guilt still. He hasn't forgiven himself for what's happened. He hasn't told anybody what's happened. He has PTSD. He's holding all this information in. And again, we just have this like really intriguing character moment about this guy who's kind of given everything that he wants. He has his chance at redemption. He has his chance at raising a family. He's got his chance at finding love. He's got his chance at having friends, having a good career. Like he's in this really good place. But he just doesn't see it. And it is frustrating to watch, but like in a good way. Because he's going to get there eventually, but you're just like, dude, she fucking loves you. What are you doing? Because Noriko is a good lady. She's a good cat. She's a good find. They all tell him this, And she more or less like, she doesn't throw herself at him, but she's like, you idiot. Don't you die doing this, we need you sort of thing. But then, man, like he still doesn't tell her about Godzilla. Godzilla shows up again. The great scene where like he's chasing the ship through the water like it's Jaws and everything else. And then like they now know that Godzilla's there. And there's this excellent shot in the movie where they drop a mine. And this is where it feels like the ending of Jaws. Like they drop a couple mines that feels like they're dropping those yellow barrels at the end of Jaws. And it feels like it. That's another thing. That's a pretty good inspirational scene. And so they drop all that out there. And then like he gets a mine. Godzilla gets a mine stuck like right in his maw. and so then Koichi has to grab the gun and he just, and ends up just like blowing up the damn thing. And they think, oh, they got him. They just took out his face. They just took out his face. And you're thinking like, dude, that F Godzilla up, he gonna be mad. And then they just watch as it just starts to repair itself, right? It just starts to repair itself. And then you're like, oh no, we can't kill it. We can't kill it. It's going to keep coming for us. But it ends up going away. And then this is the thing. This is where we get to the emotional thing. This is what really got me in the movie. So like Koichi gets home and he's talking to Noriko. Noriko's got this nice business suit on. And he's like, what are you doing with that? Right? What are you doing? And she's like, I got a job in Ginza, man. They're rebuilding the city. I got a secretary job. Well, wait, who's going to watch Akiko? Like, you're a stay-at-home mom. And she's like, Sumiko is going to do it. Auntie Sumiko. Now, at this point, what we have to remember as well is that Sumiko, who hated Koichi at the beginning of the movie, right? She hated him. Now she's been looking after Akiko. She's getting her redemption, right? She's getting her second chance to be a mother. And they've become a bit of a familial unit, right? Even if it's tangentially, like you can see the community coalescing around Koichi. He doesn't see it. The rest of us see it. I mean, it's obvious that Noriko loves him, but she basically kind of gives him an ultimatum here a little bit, just a little bit of an ultimatum. He tells him like, I mean, not directly, but she goes like, look, I'm going to go to work. And he's like, well, I make enough money. She's like, yeah, but it's time. Because she wants her independence. She wants to have value. She also wants to move on with her life. If he's not going to marry her, if he's not going to take the plunge and raise the family, then it's like, it is just that, And then, of course, the next day she's going to work in Ginza. And here comes the first attack, right? And this is such a cool attack when Godzilla rolls up on the city because he's just tearing it all down. My favorite part was when you've got like the news reporters that are on top of the building and they're just reporting it, and then like they all just fall to their death. But it cuts over to Noriko just being like on the train, and then Godzilla, it's like, ooh, something shiny. And he goes after the train, and then she's like the last person who lives. And then she's in shell shock walking through the city. Godzilla is like stomping his way through. The military shows up, starts firing tanks off. Everyone's running. She doesn't really know. And then you think she's going to get like trampled. But then out of nowhere, here comes Koichi, right? He got her. He pulls her away. They're trying to run. And that's when Godzilla lights up his back. He gets the atomic breath going. And that is the coolest damn moment of the movie. When he fires off that atomic breath and it's like an atom bomb going off. It is atomic. It is radioactive. And it just messes everything up. Sends a shockwave through the city. And they're trying to get away and it's coming. And then Noriko just pushes Koichi. Right. And then he looks at her and she just gets blown away and everything. And I was like, in my mind, I didn't say it vocally in the theater, but like in my mind, I'm just like, damn it. Like, come on, let this, can he ever be happy? Can he ever be happy? Because that just sends him into an effing tailspin. He's just depressed. He's upset. Like he's just everything about him. He's lost everything. Again, parents, he's lost the woman that he loves. He can't look after Akiko. Obviously he's not prepared enough for it. He doesn't accept her as his daughter, even though she loves him like a dad. He's in this, this place mentally. His friends are trying to help him. Again, even Yoji is just like, she would be here if you would just married her, you idiot. You know what I mean? And it's just like this idea that like his friends are giving him a hard time because they're like, you stupid moron, you should have done this. And it's like, that's how you know. Like, that's how you know that there's love. There's so much love in this movie. It is literally like overflowing with love. Though it's such a weird thing to say about a Godzilla movie. But there was so much emotion. I was getting teary-eyed, man. Like, in my brain, I'm like, she's going to be alive. She's going to be alive, man. That's going to happen. That's going to be a thing. That's going to be cool. That's what I'm thinking, right? I'm thinking like, mother needs a happy goddamn ending. He needs a happy ending. We got to have this. We got to have a happy ending. Because everything else has just been met with like, despair and destruction. And it's like this tearing apart his soul, so to speak. But that's when Noda says, hey, let's go to this meeting. We're going to figure something out, right? And oh man, I love this part. They go to this meeting, like an old general walks in. These are all ex-military guys, right? The war is over. They got nothing else to do. They're all there and they're like, we're going to have a plan. We're going to take down Godzilla ourselves. The Japanese government is not going to allocate any more resources. The Americans apparently aren't going to help. We're going to do this ourselves. And the reason why, and this is why it's so good, the reason why is because they lost the war. They lost the war, which, I mean, as an American to the Japanese, Pearl Harbor, like, hey, F around, find out sort of situation, right? Dropping the 2 atomic bombs and everything else. But that doesn't mean that it's like the people who were there wanted to be in the fight, that they felt they had to due to honor and everything else, right? But there was such a lack of humanity. And again, like I mentioned before, the Japanese government simply did not care about human life. They didn't value it at all. And so here they figure out that they can sink Godzilla using Freon, and then they can bring him up to the surface rapidly and just basically use the sea pressure to just destroy him. Which I have some thoughts about, because I'm like, if he already comes up from the deep, that means he can withstand the pressure, but maybe not a pressure drop like the one they're talking about. So that could be the issue right there. But then 2, when they get him out to where it's going to go, it's like, it's 1,500 feet deep. How is he going to get, how is he going to stand? I mean, he's clearly using his tail to stand in the water, I guess, but it's never really explained. And you just have to kind of go with it because you don't care at that point. I mean, honestly, it's a nitpick. It's a nitpick. But what I love is just the idea there, though, that Koichi is like, he's realized what he has to do. Noriko is gone. His parents are gone. He has survivor's guilt. He doesn't know anymore where his value is. And he thinks that what it is it belongs where he failed his initial mission. He did not want to die. Now he doesn't want to live. Such a weird, juxtaposition as we're going through the film. But he needs to find Tachibana. He needs to find him in order to get him to help retrofit a plane, a secret Japanese, basically like stealth bomber type super fighter plane, to be able to lure Godzilla back out to the water. And he does this by trolling him. He does. He writes these letters that just say Tachibana is the reason why everybody died on that island. You know what I mean? And you're like, oh, dude, that's effed up, man. That's real bad. That's real effed up. Holy crap. And then Tachibana shows up, beats the ever-living crap out of him. But Koichi is able to convince him to do it because it's time to finish their war. And this is how you finish it. You attach a bunch of bombs to this fighter, and then you kamikaze yourself right in Godzilla's mouth, and you blow his goddamn head off. And Tachibana, he hates Koichi. He really does at this point in time. So he agrees to help, thinking this guy's going to finally do his point. He's going to do his mission and make up for all those lives that he cost over there on Odo Island. But throughout the course of everything, Tachibana realizes that there's an ejector seat on this plane, and he does tell, he's starting to realize that Koichi is ready to die. And that's part of their last conversation that they have before they go out. And obviously we don't see him mention the ejector seat, but it's coming, foreshadowing, right? Movie logic, things like that. But the whole time, though, what gets me is that, in the night before, I'm kind of getting ahead of myself here, but the night before, Noda tells everyone to go home and to be with their families. But it's not a goodbye. It's a valuation of life. It's a celebration of love. It's not go be with your family to spend one last night. You may not come back tomorrow. But instead, what it turns into is value your life, love your loved ones. And it's this whole antithesis message to what the real condemnation of the Japanese government during World War II, of which, again, Japan has every right to do that. So then Koichi goes home, and there's he gets Akiko from the neighbor, and he's talking to her, and she drew a picture of him and mommy and Akiko, and then he's there with her, and Akiko just starts crying because she misses her mommy. She wants her mommy, and then he holds her, and he just goes I'm not going to leave you tonight. And at that point, you're you were accepting her as your daughter, man. But you're going to kill yourself tomorrow. What are you doing? You're going to, like everything. So he leaves the note for the neighbor, for Sumiko, who finds it and is upset. She's upset that he's going to leave her with Akiko, but leave her a lot of money. And then as soon as that happens, here comes someone on a telegram, but we don't know what that is just yet, right? But again, foreshadowing. But it actually leads to one of my favorite scenes in the movie, to be fair. So ultimately, Godzilla, he's just getting, bombarded by Koichi, who's just drawing him out to the sea. And then you've got all the ships that are going around him, and they sink him down to the bottom. And of course, they need to rapidly bring him up to the top, but Godzilla figures it out and starts tearing apart all the flotation devices and everything else. So he gets up to the top of the surface, and he's tore up. He's really tore up. He's hurting bad. So then you've got, this is the moment, but Godzilla is like prepping his atomic breath. He's going to take everybody out and just dominate everything, right? So here comes Koichi, and he's just barreling it, and he gets ready, and he like preps the bomb, and he goes right into Godzilla's mouth, and then it just explodes and just takes out Godzilla's head. And you're like, oh my God, he killed himself, right? No, you look up, there he is. But it's a good moment. Like, you're like, oh my God, like, because it happens so quick, the way they cut it is so fast. It doesn't feel like we didn't see him eject, because it feels like he didn't eject, right? So it is playing with your emotions a little bit. It's a little bit fast and loose at the timeline, to be fair, but still a good scene nonetheless. But then, man, they see him, and Godzilla just crumbles, and he goes to the bottom of the sea and shit. And then they all get back, and Koichi's got, he's got a blanket, and he's walking off, and everyone's kind of singing his praises. And then out comes Sumiko holding Akiko, or Sumiko. And then she looks at him, but the thing is that it's nonverbal in this scene. She looks at him with like relief. She looks at him with love. She looks at him with anger and frustration. She just starts hitting his shoulder, not saying anything, but she's hitting him. And you can see her expression, and you know intrinsically what that expression is. You know it. Because then she just shoves the telegram in his face, and he reads it, and then off they run. And they get to a hospital, and Noriko's alive. She's clearly injured. She's got some radiation sickness, because we know that was left behind. He goes in, he falls to his knees, he starts crying. He rests his head on her lap, and she asks him, is your war over yet? And that's where the movie ends. Because that's what it boils down to. Is your war over? Can we finally move past this? He's getting a second chance. He's getting that, he got his redemption. He's getting what he wanted. And then obviously we get a little bit of a stinger of Godzilla regenerating at the bottom of the ocean, whatever that means. I don't know, but man, what a freaking movie. Man, what a freaking movie. It's such a good damn film. You know what I mean, guys? It's such a good damn film. You got to love it. You got to absolutely love it. And so it's, it's just crazy. It's just absolutely crazy how good of a film it is. And I love all of it. Right. Real quick here, Blargan asking, do you feel like the final shot of Godzilla regenerating after the Noriko hospital scene was a poor choice? No. I know it was a stinger. It was a thing that they needed and whatever. But it needed to have the emotional conclusion of him with Noriko. Absolutely. Absolutely. It needs to have that there. So anyway, look, guys, we've got one voicemail to listen to. If you guys want to call on in, obviously we can do that. Let's listen to here. Again, it's 323-400-4956. The call lines are open. We got one here from Luke. Let me see if this works. This should work. Let's try it out.
Hey Matt, my name's Louis. I'm from San Diego. I've actually talked with you a few times before in the past on some other shows. I'm like the 619 number that you recognize. But what I wanted to say about Godzilla Minus One is that it's really, this movie it's an amazing film. Don't get me wrong, but it really shows like the divide and like, I guess the priorities between like American and like Japanese entertainment, or like at least when it comes to Godzilla. Because like when you start with like new like Godzilla, Kong, new Empire movie. Like, that was just focusing more on, like, dumb monster fights, which is going to be fun, don't get me wrong, but Minus One is, like, so much more than just a simple monster movie. And, like, the fact, like, the human characters involved in it are just, the whole story is so amazing that I wonder, why can't the American studios have engaging, like, human characters like Minus One did, or, like, there's several other, like, Toho Godzilla films that do have those kind of characters, and I'm wondering why are we struggling so much with that? It's something that should be so easy, but it's not. And I'm wondering if you feel the same about that. All right, take care, man.
Thank you very much for calling in. I do appreciate that. So yeah, like when it comes to the monster movies that we have here in the United States versus the ones that we have there, the ones that they have there, I believe, are largely based in mythos. There's a lot of mythology that comes out of Japan. Never mind how Godzilla was a commentary on the atomic bombs at Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And they're playing to their societal strengths, right? They're playing to their, what they know as being storytellers. We here, especially like in the United States, everything here is mass market entertainment. We have to remember that. It's all mass market entertainment. If you recall, 2014, Gareth Edwards' Godzilla came out, and it did well, but people wanted more out of it. They thought that it was too basic. They thought that it was just too simple. You can have a simple story because, again, one of the elements I really enjoyed about 2014 was the human element, the familial element between Aaron Taylor Johnson and Elizabeth Olsen, and never mind Bryan Cranston at the beginning of the movie was really good, and that opening scene was amazing with 2014. But then you get to Godzilla King of the Monsters, which I think it was the perfect blend of everything, because it expanded the universe and it did it in a way that still felt somewhat grounded. I mean, not entirely, but like it did well, in my opinion, for how Michael Daughtry tried to expand the world and ground it and do everything else and build upon the mythos and make it more fascinating. Godzilla versus, I don't even know, man. I don't even know. I need to read up on the history of that movie, right? I need to do a Podio commentary on it at some point, because it is just what it is. But when I look at what the story of Godzilla Minus One is, and I apply it to like Western storytelling, you would only get a movie like that during award season, which, by the way, is like right now. You'd only really get that during award season, and it would just be something that is created to be the bait. That's all it is created to be bait, Oscar bait. But here, this is designed to be a movie that anyone can watch and get engrossed in. And, we may not be, Japanese and understand the fallout of what happened after World War II, but we can understand the desire to better yourself, the desire to build a community, the desire to stand up for what you believe in and to fight for your country, to fight for yourself. There are so many elements of storytelling that this movie pulls from that I feel like the West has just kind of forgotten, because the West does everything paint by numbers. I hate to say it like that, I do. But the movies all largely paint by numbers. And I've talked about that multiple times, the Blake Snyder beat sheet and everything else. And I think that they're afraid of really trying to tell a unique story that can be translated to a big mass market entertainment piece. And it doesn't necessarily have to be like the splashiest thing. As I tell everybody who always asks me, why is Avatar so popular? Avatar is so popular because of the way it makes you feel. The experience is what reminds you what you're watching. And that's the biggest part of this movie, is the experience of it. And it's not even Godzilla, that's the experience. Now, don't get me wrong though, man. Like when he's in the water, terrifying. And they put a lot of the visual effort on work into his eyes. Like his eyes are freaking terrifying when he's in the water. Those are my favorite scenes of the movie. But I don't believe the West can tell that kind of story. Like the director wants to do a Star Wars movie. And I'm like, let the guy do a damn Star Wars movie. Let him do it. Let him cook. Put him in there. Do it. And that's something that we definitely need to remember. So thank you very much for that. That was the only voicemail I have so far. That's okay. Let's take a quick look here at the chat here. Blargan says, I'm deep into Japanese folklore. There is a shit ton of spiritualism and mythological aspects in Minus One. They even name drop some throughout. America culturally lacks a thing like that to build off of. I mean, we have folklore here in the United States that we could pull from, but America is largely afraid of its own history. They are. America is very afraid of its own history because certain elements of people out there have tried to make it out to be everything American is terrible, everything American is god awful, everything American is evil. And so since these are meant to be worldwide, engaging movies they spend hundreds of millions of dollars on, obviously it's simply not going to, there's going to be issues with that. Blargan here also says Avatar is popular exactly because it uses relatively simple character tropes and archetypes. Sometimes you can have depth come out of something simple at face value. Exactly. There's a lot of elements going into that kind of stuff. So anyway, if anyone has any more comments you want to call into the voicemail line, 323-400-4956. Would love to hear you. If not, we're going to wind it down in about a couple minutes. Jess here says America has a lot of shame. That's very true. Unfortunately. And then Blargan says here, that's also why America will never make a truly thoughtful Godzilla adaptation. The franchise's inception is based off of an American war crime. I mean, yeah. Well, we have Cloverfield, which is one of my all-time favorite movies. So I'll tell you what, Blargan, I'll tell you what, man, we'll bring you in for like a few minutes. There you go. And we can have you come in for a few minutes. We'll try to keep it about an hour. So we have a little over 8 minutes left. We'll try to get there. Blargan was on here for the Matrix Revolutions last Podio commentary we did, but we had a good conversation. So I'm definitely wanting to keep up with that. But either way, at the end of this whole thing, my takeaway is just go see the movie. If you are watching this and you haven't seen it, there's spoilers. I don't know why, but it's I can't convey it enough as to why it's as good as it is. And I think that's going to be something that is really beneficial for like a lot of people. You know what I mean? So there's definitely that, but thank you. Anyway, take a look here at the chat. All right, we got Blargan joining in. What's going on, Blargan?
Hey, can you hear me all right?
I can hear you all right, yeah.
Sounds good. Man, I am just so glad to see that you like this movie this much.
I love it. I like fucking adore it. It's I tell you this, I woke up the next morning. I woke up because I saw Silent Night like right after. I walked right out of Godzilla Minus One right into Silent Night. I almost went home and did this Podio commentary instead of going to see Silent Night.
I'm not gonna lie, I think I mentioned it yesterday in your chat, but the day that you were gonna do that double feature, I actually checked in on your Twitter to see if you were posting about Godzilla. And when I saw your reaction, I was like, oh man, I hope he doesn't have the other movie after this, because I don't know how you could even go into another movie after watching Minus One. It's so overwhelming.
It is overwhelming. I mean, the thing I like about Silent Night is that it's a simple movie.
I just don't know how you can like turn your brain into it. Like, I don't know what I'm trying to say is like, it's hard to decompress from Minus One instantly and go into another film and not have that lingering in your head still.
No, I get that. I think in many ways, though, for me, it has a lot to do with the fact that I've worked for movie theaters for so long.
That's a good point.
So like I know how to go in and like you watch a double feature or whatever. But again, but the thing you have to remember though is Silent Night is also about loss and it's also about grief, right? So thematically, both movies are very similar.
That's good that they pair well.
They do pair well. I mean, I will talk about that later on. I did like it, but when I was watching like Minus One, I didn't know what to think going in. That's the key thing. I didn't really know what to think because I'd seen the trailer.
I don't think most people did because the trailers didn't really tell you anything about the actual story. Just the general, this is the setting. That's it. I don't think the trailers even told you, oh, this is about a kamikaze pilot. I don't think we really knew anything.
No, that to me was one of the most interesting aspects of it as I'm watching this. I'm like, oh, Oh, he's a kamikaze pilot. Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
The opening scene, you're like, oh wow, this is a cool idea for a character.
You know what it reminds me of? You know what it reminded me of? Finn from The Force Awakens.
Yes, it's Finn if they didn't ruin the character.
It's Finn if they did it right.
And you know what's funny? You know what's so funny? I just realized Noriko and the stuff she says to him is a lot like what Rose says to Finn in the second movie.
No, whoa, hold on. Let's not besmirch Noriko, okay? Let's not besmirch Mariko. All right, she was
it
great.
Really is though. What was it, Rose? Tico said it's not about
fighting what you hate. It's about saving what you love.
Yeah,
yeah, it's similar. It is similar. I bet you if you ask the director, he'll be like, I really liked The Last Jedi. And I'm like,
well, he wants to make a Star Wars, so
let him cook. Let him cook. That's what I say to that one.
Let him. Lucasfilm would give him the freedom that Toho did. No. Exactly. I don't know if he should waste his time.
No, I think he should do whatever he wants to do. And that movie is going to probably win.
Yeah,
best,
I think I mentioned it
foreign.
earlier. This guy, have you seen any of his other movies?
No, I just looked him up tonight.
Oh shit! Did we lose Matt?
No, I'm here.
Oh, there we go. Have you ever seen another Yamazaki movie?
No, I haven't.
There was a movie called Always Sunset on 3rd Street. I believe it was the second one where this happened, where he had a scene with Godzilla in it back in, God, that was like 06 or 07. So this dude, I think, has been trying to get Toho to let him make a Godzilla movie for almost 20 years now.
Well, I mean, Toho had to wait for the end of the deal with Legendary to get that going, and I'm glad that it took, because you had like the pandemic kept him writing, kept him revising, kept him building up and everything, and I think that worked out really well for him. And because like what we got was like at some points, like Koichi was a little over the top.
I don't really think he was, for me personally, but
not like, well, not bad, but not bad. I don't mean bad, but I mean like I understand the PTSD. I understand what he's going through as a character, but it's like when he's trying to like convince Noda to like give him more time to find Tachibana, and he's all like, please, and he like slams his head on the table.
Oh, the bowing. See, that is just some cultural stuff that's going to be hard for some Americans, I think, because I do admit he's very exaggerated sometimes.
Yeah, he really was. He really was exaggerated, but again, it's just like I liked that Noriko was like grounding him a bit more, and like and then but what I also loved was like his shipmates became his brothers.
I love those dudes so far.
I know, right? No, Noda, I love Noda, but then you got Yuji, and Yuji's just like, if you make a Kiko an orphan, I swear to God.
Dude, I love that line.
I swear, it's like, we're going up against this massive monster. Don't you fucking kill yourself. I will come down there. I will get you. And just like how they bonded over everything, and like it just like they were having dinner with each other, and they're just spending all this time together, and it's like he's getting this family that he thought he lost. I'm sorry, what?
I said I wanted more slice of life scenes, like the dinner scene. Yeah. I really love those.
No, absolutely. That's what I'm saying. Like, as much as I loved Godzilla in the movie, those interstitial scenes, which really Godzilla was interstitial, but those scenes were like the meat and bones of the movie. That's what I wanted to go back to. It's like when you're watching a good drama series on television. Like, yeah. You got the other story over here. That's cool, but go back to this story. I want to know what's going on over here.
I actually genuinely, at one point, my friend and I both agreed after the movie, we were like, oh, when Godzilla came back, we almost were like, oh, we can go back to just like the Koichi scene.
Yeah, just go back to him like doing his thing and like, being stubborn and stuff. And, and like Akiko is a cute little kid, and she's like, Daddy, I make pictures, and you're just like, oh, and then like, but the scene when Noriko, what got me though, is the scene where Noriko puts on the business suit and she's like, I'm going to go to Ginza and get a job. Or I've got a job already, and he's just like, but why?
Koichi's like, what? No, you can't leave.
You can't leave. And then she's like,
I think he literally says something like, but I feed you and I give you enough money, right?
Yeah. It's all like, yeah, but no, see this ring finger? What's missing? And then even his friends are just like, you should marry her. And he's like, and then she dies, and they're like, you idiot. You fucking idiot. If you would have just married her, she would be alive right now. And like, but I like that too, because that is like people holding him accountable.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
They were justified in venting that, because they loved Noriko too. They loved her too. It wasn't just him that loved her.
Yeah, no, they loved her. They love Akiko. They like, even but for me though, it was the neighbor Sumiko, right?
Sumiko was such a cool character.
She was so drunk and angry at the beginning of the movie, and you understand it. And then she's like, "Oh, you just pick anyone off the street now? Like, I don't care, whatever." And she's just cruel and bitter. But then, like, she starts looking after Akiko, and she gets to go back into that mother mode, which is what she wanted more than anything else. But then at the end of the movie, when like she runs up on Koichi, right? I was mentioning that as I was talking about it, and she runs up on him, and she's like just hitting him. You know what I mean?
So good there.
So good. And you get the expression. You completely get what she's talking about with this. It's just such
that there's a part of her that when she realized, oh my God, he went to kill himself, there's a part of her that's thinking, God, I still remember the shit I said to him the day he came back 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Maybe it's my fault.
I mean, he had nothing. Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. It's like the way that they, as far as character development goes, I haven't seen a character go through this kind of development in a movie in a long time.
Same, honestly.
And you care. You legitimately care about seeing Koichi come back alive. So like at the end, so when he crashes into Godzilla's mouth, because what I thought, and maybe I don't know if you thought this at first as well, like we knew about the ejector seat, I think, but like the button to like pull it, I thought it was the lever he says like this arms the bomb. I thought that was
I've seen it twice. I can tell you, we don't know that it has an ejector seat. What you're probably thinking of is Noda mentions during his speech to the other guys before they enact the plan. He's talking about how the Japanese government devalued human life, and he says planes without ejector seats. So you're actually going in thinking there isn't one.
Yeah, and I think so, but then I think there's a sign. You see like a sign or something, and I think I don't know. In my brain, maybe
that's revealed later. After
after that, but
flashback with Tachibana.
But I thought Tachibana was like already. You could already tell that he was kind of like wanting him to come back alive.
It's when he sees the picture that Akiko drew for him. Tachibana sees him look at that crayon drawing.
Yeah,
I think that's the moment when you see on Tachibana's face, oh shit, maybe I don't want this guy to die.
Well, then also at the end too, when they're listening on the radio as he goes in for the kill, and like he's got tears in his eyes because he's crying. He doesn't want this guy to die.
Yes,
and then
what I love is you still don't fully know what Tachibana was thinking until the revelation flashback. Because when they cut to showing he's alive, I see a parachute. You see Tachibana, he almost looks overwhelmed and distraught, but he also looks somewhat angry. So you can't tell, is he pissed that he lived or is he happy that he lived? And then you get a revelation.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I figured he was happy at that point in time. Like, because he says, well, no, because when Koichi says like, like I'm going to finish what I started. Right. And he holds up his hand and it's not shaking.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, no, it's shaking a little bit, but then he goes,
it's funny. A part of me still wants to live.
Yeah. And then he goes, and then Tachibana goes, but you're ready. Now you're ready.
Yeah.
Right. And so then he reveals the whole thing. But what I like was the smash cut when the plane goes into the mouth of Godzilla, just that smash cut. Cause you're like, wait, did he pull it? Like you see him pull the lever. Okay. He armed the bomb, but again, I just like, you just don't know. And I thought that was really great. And then of course you get that nice kind of, you're holding your breath, right? You're kind of holding it like, oh my God, is he alive?
Extended moment of silence.
Yeah, it was really well done. The whole movie's great. The whole movie's fantastic.
I don't think there's a single scene that needs to be cut from the movie. It's seriously a perfect movie.
I mean, the only thing, I'll be honest, the only thing I thought was kind of corny was like the VFX when Godzilla's going through the city. You know what I mean? But but again, it's like when he's in the water, terrifying. When he's in the city, it's kind of like guy in a suit. But I think
that was what I said earlier about that.
No, I don't think I did.
I think it's the idea with Godzilla, which has kind of been the case in multiple iterations of him, is the reason he looks all disgusting and lumpy is because his body is meant to look like a radiation burn victim. He's basically a giant scab. So I think when he's on land, he's constantly in physical pain and can't even move much. That's why he moves a lot better when he's in water.
Well, I figured because it's just like he's a sea creature. So he's just like, he's more fluid in the water. That's why the scenes of him in the water were terrifying. But then when he does the atomic breath, it's like, oh yeah.
That was such an interesting take on the atomic breath.
Well, I mean, I get it a little bit, but what I also enjoyed was the fact that in the beginning, Godzilla was just a myth, right? Like the people of Odo Island were like, no. He comes up, he feeds, like he brings up fish from the bottom of the sea, like a gift.
Which is great foreshadowing for how they defeat him.
Yeah. Oh yes. Oh yeah. That's very true. It's good. Yeah.
What I
You know,
really love about the fact that Godzilla exists pre-bombing is it shows another aspect of how the Japanese military just had no respect for Japanese life. Because the people of Odo Island, he's basically a god to them. He's a kami. And so that's holy land to these people. And what does the Japanese government do? Oh, we're just going to make it a military base. And what happens? The military shoots their god. So it's just another aspect of how much the a Japanese military statement the movie has throughout.
yeah. I saw I mentioned it earlier. Somebody online had said, "Oh, it's very critical of the American government." No, it's not.
Not at all. It
Not
barely
at
even brings
all.
them up.
It's like, oh, the Americans. Moving on.
You know, they don't even mention Hiroshima or Nagasaki once in
Not
this movie,
once.
which
I
I
mean,
really was surprised
the
by.
only well, the okay, I'd say this: the only thing that probably had the most wonky editing was the depiction of the atomic test in the water.
Oh, the Bikini Atoll. I know it was a little weird because it's all a bunch of stock footage.
Yeah, and then they threw it in there, and you're like, okay, this is meant to be the birth of Godzilla. Like, I get that, and that was probably the only thing that had maybe a little bit of trouble nailing, because sometimes it happens in these movies where there's an idea you want to convey, but like you can't quite get it right, but you just have to get it done. And the great thing about that, even though that's probably the weakest scene in the whole movie, right? It just editing wise is what I'm talking about. But it's like, it doesn't matter because everything else is so good. You're like, yeah, okay, fine. Yeah, we know that's how Godzilla came along. Okay, we get it. That's how we got big. Can we go back to the story over here? Like, that's kind of the whole thing.
I know, it's like suddenly you're in a 50s monster movie for a few seconds when it shows the bombing. It does feel a little tonally out of place with the rest of it.
Well, but I mean, isn't this meant to be like a remake of the original?
Yes. So
I
it
mean,
does make sense. It's just the rest of the movie is so grounded at times, it almost feels like a tonal whiplash having it go to a 50s type monster movie writing.
Yeah, a little bit, but it's okay.
Unavoidable though. It's the character.
No.
You can't have Godzilla not be an irradiated dinosaur. You got to have it.
Yeah. I mean, it's not like the American movies and whatnot. And you could tell they were trying to distance themselves quite a bit from that, actually. So, I mean, let me ask you this, because I do need to wrap it up. But let me ask you this: did you see the Godzilla X Kong, the new Empire trailer?
Yes, I actually had the exact same thoughts as you, where I feel like I wish I could have seen that trailer before I saw Minus One, because it kind of feels like it soured my ability to enjoy it.
Yeah, that's the best way I look at it, is just like, this is not all right. I was like, okay, like I'll watch it, but it's just like, it's like knowing what I know about Godzilla Minus One and how good that was and how it made me feel on just a human level, and then looking at this like $200 million CG slap fest. I'm like, okay.
Godzilla vs. Kong was the weakest of the MonsterVerse movies for me, so it's doubling down on the elements of Godzilla vs. Kong is not an enticing prospect for me.
No, it just looks kind of like, I mean, there's elements of Godzilla vs. Kong I really enjoyed. I still think King of the Monsters is like the best one. But they also, Gareth Edwards I really liked. So the first time I saw Gareth Edwards, I watched it at the drive-in in San Diego, and then we got it early, so we screened it early, and then I was like, all right, it was okay, and then I took my girlfriend to see it a couple days later because she wanted to go, and like, I've already seen the movie, I know what's going to happen, but something triggered as I was watching the movie in the theater, and I suddenly sat at the edge of my seat for the whole movie. I was dialed in as best I possibly could.
Did it lose you a bit when it lost Bryan Cranston, or does that not?
The first time, because he was so prominent in the marketing.
It's kind of like, imagine if Koichi died halfway in Minus One. It feels like,
right. But I feel like the rest of the characters picked up on it, and Bryan Cranston was a good lead-in. I think that opening scene, as I mentioned earlier, the opening scene of the 2014 movie was amazing. And then he dies, and like, all right, that sucks, but now we get this kind of other story, and I know it almost feels like a bit of a bait and switch, but the more you watch 2014, I feel like the more you get out of it. Whereas like you watch like, Godzilla versus King of the Monsters, and it kind of just like, now we're opening up the world, we've got all that behind us, now Godzilla's the good guy, and we're gonna need him to fight all these monsters, and there we go. Like, it is what it is. These movies are fun. But again, I think that there will be a direct cultural impact from Minus One, even felt here in this country. I have a feeling it's going to do very well award season wise. I think it's going to sell very well on home video. I'm definitely going to get it on 4K, just so I can watch it again.
I mean, it says a lot that such a limited release movie like this, subtitled only, by the way, already made its budget back in the U.S. in 1 week. That's impressive.
I mean, that's maybe it's an idea to start, making movies at a lower budget. I don't know. Maybe they'll learn something. They won't, because it's Hollywood.
I gotta ask, can you imagine how weird this movie would be if you had to watch it dubbed?
I don't want to watch it dubbed.
Can you even imagine?
I was telling my dad about that tonight. I was telling him how good it is. My dad's like 65, and like I'm all like, "You got to see this movie, Dad." And he's like, "Yeah, here's good." I'm like, "No, it's amazing. It's really amazing." I'm all like, "Don't watch it dubbed. Don't." It's like watching Squid Game dubbed. Don't watch it dubbed.
No dub. They didn't release a dub.
And thank God they didn't release.
I know. It's incredible. I'm actually shocked they did that, because they did dub Shin Gojira, from what I recall. I didn't see a dub, but I do recall an option.
Not where I was at. I mean, I was very surprised at my theater it was subtitled.
And when I saw Shin Ultraman last year, that was a dub. I don't think they even had the option for sub for that one. That one was just a dub, which was very strange.
Well, I'll tell you this though, my audience, some of the jokes in the movie, got my audience, which is pretty full, to laugh their ass off. And some of those moments where there was levity.
Too. I had a very receptive audience at both my screenings of Minus One.
Yeah. So it clearly is a movie that transcends a lot of generations. Barrier? Yeah, it does. It transcends. And I think it's a human story, one of the best human stories I think we've ever seen in many movies, to be honest with you. So but let me ask you this, and then we'll wind it down. Sure. Do you think that they should do a sequel? I know they set one up. Do you think they should do it?
So I actually was going to bring this up until I saw you do know a little bit about Toho's idea they mentioned about a cinematic universe, right?
Yeah.
Do you know any other details about what that was supposed to be?
No, I just read about it on Wikipedia.
So they haven't talked about that in years. They haven't told us much about that since
Well, that was 2018. That was 2018 that they announced that. Yeah.
They were going to start what they called the World of Godzilla. They were waiting for the legendary time, like the contract to end. And they had this thing. What they told us they wanted to do was they even said outright, this will be like a Marvel style cinematic universe that was going to be taking place in the past, kind of remaking Showa era Godzilla, which is the 50s through the 70s, kind of remaking that era of films, which makes me wonder, is Minus One supposed to be the genesis point of that concept? Like, we're going to get a bunch of new movies that all take place maybe starting in 1947 and just going forward in a new timeline of shared movies.
It's possible.
I feel like it might be the plan.
Well,
just
I mean,
because it ended on a cliffhanger.
It did end on a cliffhanger, but then some of those movies just do that, like Godzilla Will Return sort of thing.
Toho always has a rule that the director, you can do whatever you want, but you can't kill Godzilla. You need to keep some semblance of him alive at the ending.
Yeah.
But Noriko's thing is a legitimate, strange choice. Because I don't know, what do you take from her reveal at the ending? How do you think she's alive?
I mean, like, it's movie logic, man. That's how I view it.
Did you notice what's on her neck, though?
See, I saw someone mention she had a tattoo on her neck. I didn't see that in the movie. But
you didn't notice what was on her neck?
I wasn't looking at that, no.
She has, it's like a weird pulsating black vein. Kind of looks like the black goo from Prometheus that's under her skin, and it makes the shape of Godzilla's dorsal spikes.
I'll have to watch that again.
And when I watched the movie a second time, I caught a line of dialogue I didn't the first time. After the Ginza attack, they're doing, the news report about...
Yeah.
They show those guys with Geiger counters taking readings in the ruins, and they say Japanese government officials are retrieving shards of the creature, which makes me think, does Noriko, have a piece of Godzilla inside her that gave her regenerative abilities?
I mean,
it's weird.
It's weird.
It's very weird.
And then my immediate thought is Mothra. I don't know why. It's like, is she? I don't want them to fucking sully it with that, man.
I don't either. That's my problem. I'm okay with sequels. Just don't ruin those two.
Yeah, just don't make a sequel to make a sequel. Have a point.
I do have an idea for what they could do. For one idea I have, if they want to still keep an actual point, like you said. I'm trying to remember what the terminology, Hibashikana, I think. The Japanese basically, do you know that they kind of had their own COVID-like hysteria and vaccine type thing against Hiroshima and Nagasaki survivors?
No.
You should read about them. I'll look up the term in a second. They treated those people that survived like trash. Either the government used them as guinea pigs, or the people in general thought that, oh, stay away from them, they can get you sick. They were near the bomb, so they were just like treated like exiles. I feel like they could maybe do something about that, treating Noriko and Koichi like that, since they technically have been people who have survived exposure to Godzilla.
Oh, could it be like the Birth of Monarch sort of thing, or whatever the equivalent would be?
Social pariahs is my idea.
Well, I don't think social pariah, because at the end he's hailed as a hero, so I don't think that's going to change. To be honest with you,
they're called hibakusha, is what I was talking about. People who survived the bomb. The Japanese treated them like horrible, like stay away from them. Social pariahs, basically. Which is why I wonder if that's the idea, just because Noriko is now physically scarred by her interactions with Godzilla.
Yeah, we'll have to see. We'll have to see what Yamazaki comes up with, if he's gonna. I mean, like, I have a feeling Toho's gonna be like, make another one. You spent $15 million. We made a lot of money on this. Here's a little bit more money. Make it a thing. And then it will probably take place in like another decade or something. It probably won't be the 40s. It might be the 50s or whatever else. Yeah. And it will probably be with a whole new cast of people. But again, touching upon social commentary, because he did write it during COVID. It was, a lot of that was influenced. A lot of that influenced the movie for him. So there's elements of it that are going to be really fascinating to see what's going on with that. But I think on that note, it's a good time to wrap it up. Sure. I do appreciate everybody tuning in tonight for Podio Commentary, talking about Godzilla Minus One. As always, I want to hear your thoughts. I want to hear your opinions. You guys can leave comments below the video. Leave a like, subscribe if you're new. If you're listening to this on iTunes, please leave a review. Spotify, I don't know, like it, subscribe. I don't even know how Spotify works very much, to be honest with you. But if you're listening to this on podcast, thank you. And I will talk to you guys later. Have a good one and peace out.